Welcome back to Building Insight. I'm your host, Quentin Glenn, alongside my co-host, Amy Marecko.
Hello.
Our guest today is Cheryl Luckett, the owner and creative mind behind Dwell by Cheryl. Cheryl, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, welcome.
So, Cheryl, having you in here with us kind of hits close to home. My grandmother owned her own interior design company for 40 to 50 years. So,
Wow.
I got to see her hustle and, kind of just the love and passion she put behind her work. So I'm interested to kind of, learn your story as well. Tell us a little bit about, who you are, what you do, and how you got here.
So, hindsight is always 2020. And looking back, you can always connect the dots, as Steve Jobs says. And that is certainly the case in my story. I grew up in Gulfport, Mississippi, 60 miles from New Orleans. And I had educator parents. My dad was my middle school principal. My mom was a high school guidance counselor.
I'm sure you loved that.
Yeah, actually, it was kind of cool.
Okay, cool.
I'm that girl.
Yeah.
So they definitely instilled in their kids that education was important. They grew up in a time where access was limited to people who looked like us, and they really instilled a work ethic and an appreciation for education and really doing the best that you could, no matter what you were attacking. And so I have two sisters. We were good kids. We did all the things, excelled. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really optional.
Yeah.
So I graduated from high school and went on to college. At the prompting of my mother, I was kind of steered, and she hates when I say this, but I was steered in a direction toward healthcare. Mm-hmm. Had always been a creative, and really had some passions around that by the time I was in high school. But again, she kind of influenced me to go in a more traditional career path. Mm-hmm. And I ended up majoring in dietetics. I am a registered dietitian by trade. So my first career is as a registered dietitian, and it's a credential I still hold today. Mm-hmm. I went on through college, graduated, went on to do some postgraduate work, pursuing my license as a dietitian. Left there, had to decide where I wanted to get my big girl job, mm-hmm. and landed in North Carolina. Had never stepped foot in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Landed here. Because it had great weather. Mm-hmm. And I was coming from the deep south, went to college in Nashville, Tennessee. And so I literally just picked it off the map. Mm-hmm. Came here, job hunted, ended up in public health in Cleveland County in the health department. Had a great job, great coworkers. The job was a little probably too easy for me. And I kind of thought to myself, I'm not going to be here long. Mm-hmm. So I started to put feelers out about a year in, and I happened to work for a lady who had a husband who worked at a very large food service corporation in Charlotte called Compass Group. Mm-hmm. He happened to be a recruiter. And she said, give me your resume. I'll take it home to my husband and just see. Mm-hmm. So I got a call shortly thereafter from a recruiter at Compass Group. They were looking for a regional dietitian in the South region for one of their sectors in school nutrition. And so I've had an interview, long story short, ended up taking that job. It was during a time when child nutrition was a hot topic. This was pre-Michelle Obama, Let's Move initiative. Mm-hmm. This was before that. Yeah. And so child nutrition, school lunch was taking a hit. Like mm-hmm. It was on the news all the time. It was the frying the French fries and mm-hmm. We need to do better. And so I had a critical role at this company, like literally fresh out of college. It was pretty much a dream job for mm-hmm. a dietitian. Yeah. I was traveling all across the South. I was a subject matter expert. I was working with kids, and it was fun. Yeah. It was fun. I had my little Palm Pilot and my wheelie rolled
love that
computer bag.
Oh, computer! Yeah,
yes,
that's awesome.
Going through the airport.
Just a boss walking in.
Oh yeah, I was killing it at 25.
I love that.
So I really liked my job. I had a great company. I was growing. They were hiring more and more dietitians. The region got larger. Fast forward, I'm doing this for about a decade mm-hmm. now. And everything has evolved, and it's just, slowly but surely being elevated. Mm-hmm. It was about that time that I started to burn out a little bit. Like the traveling is a lot.
Yeah.
Being on the road all the time. It sounds cool until it's not. And so I started to kind of look for what's next for me. I was being tapped for some opportunities and I just wasn't feeling where I was. And so I had a mentor who worked in the corporate office, and he happened to be the chief diversity officer at the time. And so I reached out to him, and he said, well, I have a job opening. And I said, well, I'm not an HR professional. I'm a dietitian. And he was like, yeah, but you've been here 10 years and you know the company well,
right,
and I can teach you the rest. So I made a pivot from the operation side of that company to the corporate side. And so I took a role as, which ended up being director of diversity and inclusion for another sector in the company, and kind of had a corporate 9 to 5, which I liked. Gave me a lot more work-life balance. I was at home in the evenings, twiddling my thumbs, scrolling through Facebook. I know. I had purchased my first single-family home, and I was gardening and nesting and doing DIY projects. And I decided that I'd always wanted to do a little bit more in the design space. So I decided to take a class at CPCC. I'm like, well, what could hurt? I got time in the evenings. I'll just take a little class at the junior college. So get to the class. I'm going through the first one. It's definitely a departure from my day job. I met a girl who was fresh out of high school. We became fast friends. At this time, I'm in my mid-30s, and I'm this 18-year-old
Nothing wrong with that.
sitting
Nothing
next
wrong
to me.
with that.
And we became fast friends, and we were chatting, and she said, you should start a blog. And I'm like, what is a blog? So she pulls out her phone, and she's showing me these home interiors blogs. And I'm like, interesting. Got some time on my hands. I'm doing all this stuff at home. I'm a little extra. So, of course, as I'm, ruminating over this thought, I'm like, well, I think I could do this. I need a web domain. I need a name. I need a blog designer, a logo. Because remember, I'm a corporate girl. So I've learned all the things at my little Fortune 500 about how to run a business.
Sure.
And so I start this project to launch this blog, and I do. I made everybody I knew sign up for it.
I love that.
Had a whole big launch on January 1st, 2012. And I blogged 3 times a week.
Nice.
And in the evenings. Well, quickly that turned into a business because the people who I made sign up were like, well, I got a little project at my house. My boys' rooms need redoing, or the dining room really could use a little spruce up. So I would go over. I made up some processes because, again, I work in corporate and I know that I need to look like I know what I'm talking about.
For sure.
I had a consultation fee and all the things. And so I would show up to my church member's house and I would decorate and take photos professionally and put them on the blog, and it just started to snowball. Before I knew it, I had people reaching out that I didn't know.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, hey, look, I got a day job, so sure, I can do your project, but it's going to be on the weekends and you can't call me during the day.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, that's fine. Before I knew it, I had a waiting list.
Oh my gosh.
Again, I'm stated blogging. I'm taking class number 1, then class number 2, then class number 3. So 2 years into this, I realized this could be a thing. I'm really loving this, and people are calling, and I've got a demand. I never really thought I could leave my day job, but maybe I could.
Yeah.
So I start to think about it. I pray about it. I come to the conclusion that the only thing stopping me from even entertaining the thought was the financial aspects.
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, I'm a single girl. I got a mortgage and bills and a great salary and benefits and tenure and all the things. What would it take for me to be comfortable leaving all of this? And so I kind of start to think through what a plan might look like to exit. Basically, I said, I think I could do this. It would take me some time. And I was given, I guess, in a vision or so I was prompted to 36 months. And I'm like, 3 years, like that's a long time. I mean, 3 years, I could finish school. I could finish, meet these classes in this program I'm in at night. I could build some more demand, kind of level things up. And I called it Project 36. And it was my 36 month exit strategy from corporate. Hired a financial planner, went to her, said, hey, look, I want to leave my job making six figures in 36 months. Here's who I owe. I still got student loans.
Right.
She's like, okay, let's go. And she gave me a plan and we chunked it down 36 months.
Wow.
And I had to report in every quarter. And it was like, by now you should have X amount in savings, and this bill should be down to such and such.
Right,
so there was
right.
accountability.
That's good.
And the months just kind of started to tick away. I started to use my PTO to go to conferences, and now I'm interfacing with some of the designers that are like doing things for real. And I'm, making relationships with them, and brands are now starting to reach out because I'm blogging all the time and the projects are getting better. And so now I'm balancing like a real job, school, a blog, and building a business on the side. And so before I knew it, it was 24 months and then 18. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing this. So 3 months out from that 36-month deadline, I put in my resignation. And there was literally no turning back. I kind of chronicled it all on social. So there is a slow-mo video of me leaving on December 30th, 2016 that I post every December 30th, and people love it.
That's so funny.
Because they kind of, watch the dream come to fruition. So
They were there with you.
Yeah.
As you were walking out after you given your resignation, was that did you kind of get like one of those oh crap moments, or was it like a weight lifted off and like because you've been doing it for so long to this point kind of as a side hustle? What was that moment like for you?
There was an assurance by that time.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 years is a long time, right? I probably had some of those panic attacks in like month 24, month 20.
Sure.
But by the time we got to the clock is running out, there was all signals were pointing to the door.
Writing was on the wall.
Yeah. And I kind of knew that this was time, and they asked me to stay and, tried to negotiate. Well, what if you did? But I was out by that time.
Yeah.
Like it had been too long, and I was starting to feel like I was going to miss my opportunities if I didn't make the leap.
Yeah, for sure.
You needed to go all
I needed skin in the
Yeah,
game.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of what you said resonates with like me personally, right? So I grew up, my dad was a stockbroker. He was dead set on me being a stockbroker. Like I was always really good at numbers, right? And
You still are.
it still am for sure. But, I kind of marched on that path, and I started to almost gravitate away from what my parents wanted me to be. I mean, and I can't look at it like psychologically as to like, this is exactly why, but I found my passion doing something else. Right. How was that interaction with your family when, you told, or I guess just your sisters or your mom, or, were they approving of it? Were they, how did that work?
So, I have the best parents in the world. I actually lost my dad Labor Day. So,
I'm so sorry.
it certainly would not be the business owner that I am without his influence. That said, I did not tell my parents until I turned in that letter of resignation with 3 months left on the clock. Because I knew the influence that they had on me. I knew that I respected them and their opinions, and I knew that they might make me doubt my resolve. Well intended, but I knew I needed a boundary there, or I risked pivoting in a different direction.
That was smart.
And so when I did tell them, they of course were nervous because they come from a different time. I mean, times have changed, right? They graduated from college in the 1960s when you got a good job with benefits and you were there for the long haul. Like that was what stability was. we come up in a different time, and even right now it's even a different time than when I did this, 12, 15 years ago. So they had concerns, but I think they trusted me at this point. I wasn't a kid. I mean, I that video was filmed. I was 40 years old. So I was grown. Like, I've planned for this. Like,
Right.
I have safeguards in place. So they were nervous, but I think they were supportive because they trusted that I would excel no matter what.
Yeah. And I think, I have a 2-year-old, so like what I know about parenting is like less than a 2-year-old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you're raising a kid, you're not raising them to be a good child. You're raising them to be a great adult.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, coming from a parent's perspective, they only know to teach you how to avoid some of the things that they've gone through in their life. Right. So again, like my dad was a stockbroker. He wanted me to be a stockbroker because he knew what that meant financially for me.
Yep.
I kind of took a different approach in my growth. I came out of college. I won an entrepreneurship contest at Arizona State. I got a big grant. Me and my buddies, moved into a house. We tried to, make a computer thing work. Didn't work. I stumbled into recruiting. Have I mentioned I did recruiting before to you? So I stumbled into recruiting, and then I went out and started my own recruiting business. When I told my family that I was leaving, again, like a 6-figure job, like I was good at it. Hey, I'm going to go start this on my own. Oh my gosh, worst idea that I've ever had. What are you doing? Like, you're taking away all of your security, this and that. But again, much like you, like I had confidence within myself. I'd rather bet on me than be reliant on somebody else.
Yep.
Right. And then, eventually, recruiting business, I got lined up with this company that I'm with currently. Told my family again, hey, I'm going to stop doing my recruiting business. I'm going to move across the country, say goodbye to your 1-year-old grandson. And again, worst idea ever. But I think when you make those like life pivoting decisions, you get to watch it in real time. Like it's your eyeballs that are watching it all. And you get the real reward of like, wow, I went out, I did this on my own.
Yeah.
I'm killing it. And it kind of gives you just a new level of confidence. Do you kind of feel that yourself?
100%. And I think it instills a confidence in them. Like, they were there for all the accolades along the way. Like, well, you can kind of feel that they're like, "Whoa, you're not playing around." Like you're kind of a big deal. We have a joke in my family. That they're like, she's kind of a big deal.
I love that. But it's a testament to how they raised you, and
100%.
For sure, you wouldn't be there if it wasn't for all the things that they instilled in you growing up.
Yeah. And I do think it is confidence building. And sadly, though, hindsight, you kind of get amnesia and you forget how far you've come. So you have to really be intentional about looking back and being like, wait a minute. Especially as you hit new hurdles. Looking back and be like, well, okay, you kind of did that back then. Surely you can, kind of self-talk, like encouraging yourself. Like, I've come a long way, and if I did it before, I can do it again.
That's something I experience all the time myself. Like, if you would have told 14-year-old me, it's like, you move across country, you started a business, had a successful business, you're a chief operating officer of 3 different companies. Like, I would have signed the contract right then at 15. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, when you're living it in the moment, you kind of have to tell yourself like be proud of who you are. Yeah. And again, like Amy said, like that just circles back to, the confidence that you got when you were raised. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, when you were growing up, just like stark difference, dietitian to interior designer. Was this always something you were interested in? Did you always have an eye for it? Or is this like, how did that come about?
So like I said, hindsight is 20/20. And it wasn't until I got to this place and I started to explore this career that I started to look back and was like, oh,
that was a sign.
That's what that was.
Yeah.
For example, growing up as a kid, my parents would go somewhere and I would be left at home with my big sister, and I'd like clean the whole house and, turn off all the overhead lights and turn on the lamps. And I knew at a very early age that environment mattered, and it made me feel different. Like I wanted it to be clean.
Yeah.
I wanted the low lighting to be cozy. My room was like everything.
Were you
like,
constantly rearranging it?
Sometimes,
redesigning
but
it?
I was really serious about no
Yeah.
one had to tell me to make a bed or
Yeah.
like I would wake up in the morning, like I'm talking second grade, and open the blinds so I could get the natural light.
I
and,
love that.
You know, those kind of
Yeah.
things.
Right,
I'd have
right.
slumber parties, and I'd like line up all the guests'
That's so
shoes
cute.
by the wall so that they wouldn't be a visual distraction.
Yeah.
You know, it's like those
love
kinds
that.
of things. You look back, you're like, oh, that's why I did that.
Yeah.
When I got to college, my room was the room that they toured prospective students through. The dorm director would call and say, hey, Cheryl, we
Not
have somebody
mine.
coming at 10. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. I'll have the room ready.
I love that.
I'd have soft music playing. This was long before House Hunter. So I have no idea how
Yeah.
I knew that I needed music playing in the background, but
Yeah.
it was ambiance.
Yeah, for sure.
I would collect money from my roommate over the summer and be like, okay, look, so I'm going to decorate our dorm room, and this is what I'm going to need from you. So it's basically project managing our dorm decoration
Yeah.
project. So, yeah, the signals were always there, and this was certainly an interest from the very beginning. But again, I think I did not fully understand that it was an option.
Well, you were taught to go
Until
down
later.
the safe. Yeah, you were
Yeah.
taught to go down the safe path. Like here's
Yes.
a pathway for you to
Yes.
work
Shoe
for a
in, you'll be
large.
good.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And to my mom's credit, no, let's not diss mom. I wouldn't be the business owner that I am had I not had that experience in a large corporation, working as a dietitian, and HR professional with access to all the things, all the resources. It just those transferable skills are invaluable.
It's kind of weird
100%.
because, like, again, like I come from recruitment. You know, the subsect of HR, like just having that HR knowledge, like when it came time for me to start my business, like I knew what I needed to do. Like it was just, you know, I need this because this is going to come up and I'm going
Yep.
to get this in the mail.
Yep.
So that's an interesting, like how we got to this point. Like I mentioned, like right before we started, my grandmother owned a interior design company for 50 years. She still does it, you know, and she's well into her 70s. I have never, and I'm curious if you feel the same way, but like I have never seen somebody who enjoyed what they did as much as my grandmother did.
That's so funny. In this profession, there are a lot of second careers. This is, I listened to one of your previous podcasts, and you guys were talking about how did you stumble into construction. No one stumbles into, I won't say no one. Most people don't stumble into interior design. We've always had it.
It's intentional.
Yeah.
It's a passion. And that passion doesn't always make for a great entrepreneur,
Sure.
but it usually makes for a really good designer. And so you do see people who do it forever because it's what they would do if no one paid them to do. It's what I was doing when I was in second grade and I was lining up those shoes and making up my bed and opening up the blinds. You know, it's what I was doing when my parents left and I was cleaning up and turning all the lamps on. That is who I am. It's a part of who you are. So it's hard not to do it. It's why you can do it when you're 70 and 75 and maybe it's just a project here and there, but it's a part of who you are that it's the beauty of it, but that comes at a cost too.
Yeah.
Right. Because you are running a business.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And, you know, again, just speaking from the frame of reference of my grandma, like she cared about her clients, like, I mean, as deeply as she cared about her family, right? Like she cared about her vendors and her vendor partners, right? Like, you know, I can think of a painter that she used to work with. I mean, he was two guys in a truck and, you know, she believed in him and his business started to blow up as a result of her. And she takes a lot of personal pride in that. And I think kind of what you're saying is like very rarely do you get to be able to monetize your passion in such a way that it's like, I can help myself have a new life, but I also get to like feel rewarded like spiritually every single day.
Yep. The difficulty though, and let me be real, is that as much as I love interior design and I could, you know, pull together a scheme with the best of them, I only do that about 20% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
The other 80% of the time is payroll and P&Ls and uh, performance appraisals and mid-year reviews and
operations.
and invoices and
knocking down vendors and
networking and events and panels and podcasts. And so you need to go in for those aspiring designers who do have a passion for this. You have to be under the impression that, that's great. But at the end of the day, you got to run a business. Because nobody can hire you if they don't know who you are, which means you've got to do all the marketing and all the things that come with owning any business.
Yeah.
But that, if you love it enough, that 20% will sustain you through the 80.
For sure.
Yeah.
And, I'm director of marketing for the Flooring Pros, and we're really trying to build, this last whole year was us just trying to rebuild our brand and like get our brand out there. Somebody sees one of my graphics, they know, oh, that's TFP. They don't even need to look for the logo. And I feel like we've been pretty successful this year with that. We've had like 4 different logos. I'm like, this is it. This is our last logo. This is the one. Like, I know that you had mentioned that you built a lot of your business through social media and marketing in that way. What advice would you have for us or for anybody looking to use social media or LinkedIn or anything like that to help build their brand and build their business?
I think there were some things that I did in the very beginning. Unbeknownst to me, I think it's just kind of who I am, but they proved very beneficial. The first one is consistency. Because I had a day job and a regular schedule, I had a regular posting schedule. Now, again, I've been around since, some of these platforms came to be, and certainly became popular for businesses. So Instagram, before that, we were all on Twitter and we were tweeting different brands, and then the visual creative people all moved to Instagram because now we had a visual place to display things. Right. So I was there in the very beginning, and because I was clocking in somewhere else, I had to be strategic. I would post before I left. And this is when people posted a little bit more. It was like Instagram.
Yeah.
I posted before I would leave home for work. I posted during my lunch break. And I posted in the evening every day.
Wow.
Every day.
And not just like a story, like an actual...
There were no stories.
Okay.
This was pre-story.
Okay.
This is pre-story time.
Yeah.
So it was Instagram was this is what I'm doing in the instant. And I was regular with it. And so that people love consistency. It doesn't matter what the frequency is as much as you are consistent. There's a comfort in knowing that you're going to get something on a regular basis. And this is something that holds true for me 13 years later. I am consistent. I still, 13 years, I haven't taken a day off of social media. It's just a part of how I show up and how I market my business. So on vacation, I've got stuff queued up. I mean, if I'm at home for Christmas, you're probably going to get a little family something.
Yeah. But people probably enjoy that.
They do. And so it lets them connect with me on a personal level. I do a Sunday sit down every other Sunday. Whether I feel like it, whether the Panthers are playing at 1 and it's 1:30 and I really want to be watching the game, I do a video where I sit down and say what I've done over the past 2 weeks, and people can count on it. And I'm always so surprised when people come up to me. I had a CEO of a furniture company say, I love the Sunday sit down. I'm like, you watch the Sunday sit down? Like, why?
Yeah, I love that.
But I think it's the consistency. It's like your cup of coffee in the morning. It's like your glass of wine in the evening. It's something that's a regular part of the rhythm of what you expect when you open up an app. And I think some games you can win just by staying in the race because so many people are inconsistent.
Yeah,
they drop off. They, and I'm not saying you should sacrifice your life to do that, but you have to understand there's a commitment that comes with some of this. And oftentimes it's either time or money.
Yeah.
Or both.
Yeah.
So I'm the person who does mine. So mine costs me my time. And I just understand that that's just a piece of the business.
Yeah.
So the consistency part is really important, and it's, in my opinion, is the leg up.
Yeah.
Because it's the thing that most people don't do.
Yeah, my husband and I actually were just talking about that last night. So it's funny that you bring that up because we're trying to think, okay, what's next for our marketing strategy? What's our lead gen strategy? You know, and I always kind of, he's a VP of marketing for his company. So I always pick his brain. That's while he's cooking. I'll be like, what do you think about this? You know?
Yeah.
But he brought that up yesterday. So it's so funny you say that. He's like, what other companies that are in the flooring industry that are doing what you guys are doing,
Yeah.
that have posts that are as clean as yours, that are as consistent as yours,
Yep.
keep doing it. Keep getting it out. So I love that you said that. It just like, not that I don't trust Annie. You got what you're doing, dude. But like, it's nice to hear it and reaffirm.
And know who you're serving and where they are.
Yeah.
That's important too. Like I'm consistent on the platforms that I need to be consistent on, but there are others that I just have a presence.
Sure.
That I can't be everything all the time, everywhere. So I have to lean in where I know I'm getting the most return on.
Yeah, you niche down,
yeah,
right? You're not trying to be everything to everybody,
yes.
right? Yeah. No, I mean, again, it's interesting you say that because, you know, this is like what, our 9th episode, 10th episode? Yeah, 9th episode. Mm-hmm. The first 6 that we did, absolute crickets. Never heard anything from anybody. Now, over the last like month and a half, I would say, people are like bringing it up to me all the time. Now, half of those people are also like trying to sell me something kind of in my role.
Fine.
Don't care. Don't care.
Yep.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, and you know, I'm trying to build my own personal brand as well. The owner of our company, like he's gone full in on the personal brand, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, like that's how you market yourself, not just your business, not just your services. Like people need to know who you are, otherwise they don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Right. So kind of in that same realm, how, you know, obviously you get a lot of leads from your social media. I would assume a lot of it is referrals and word of mouth too, right? Like, so how do you, like, how would you put those in those 2 buckets?
You know, as this is my 13th year in business, and it has definitely evolved. Mm-hmm. I started out as a budget designer. Like I was doing DIY. You know, I was flipping things from the Habitat Restore, which landed me a partnership with the local Habitat Restores, and I started blogging for them, and then Goodwill called. And so, you know, this is a testament to consistency, because that showing up and sharing on a consistent professional basis has landed me opportunities since the very beginning at every level. And so my business has evolved. Now we're certainly much more of a luxury design firm. We're not doing DIY anymore. It's not exactly budget friendly any longer. But that said, how I've used social to attract clients has shifted over the years because of the demographics. You know, when you're talking to the broader audience of, you know, making it accessible to everyone, that audience is broader. Right. So it's easier to get leads at a certain level. Yeah. You know, you're talking to your clients. They are the masses. As you level up, that pool gets smaller and smaller. So you kind of have to diversify what's the approach. Right now, I'm meeting people. I'm doing projects that are a little larger. And so I need people who are more like them. So then it becomes a little bit more referrals. Do you know anyone who might be interested in this service? You know, maybe having opportunities to network with your clients' friends or your clients' neighbors. Then it becomes, at the next level, it becomes networking with people who are serving your clientele, like trade partners, vendors, builders, contractors. So it's evolved. And how I use social media now is a little different than how I used social media in the very beginning. Right now, I recognize that a lot of my clients aren't finding me on social media. They are probably vetting me on social media.
Sure.
Yeah. Digital footprint is probably more important for my clientele than social media presence is, because they're Googling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Interior designers in Charlotte. Best interior designers in Charlotte. Black interior designers in Charlotte. I know this because we ask.
Yep.
And so I need to come up high. How do you come up high? Right?
More stuff.
Yes.
Just
more,
keep churning
more
it.
content.
Yeah.
And that's organic content. That's being featured on other people's pages. That's writing articles for publications. So, there's a strategy behind it, and you have to be intentional. And I think how I'm using it differs, right, from how I was using it then. It's kind of why you have to know who your ideal client is, so you can go after them in the appropriate way.
Yeah.
Right.
You said something, Quentin, earlier, just a few minutes ago. I wanted to double back on. Being consistent and showing up and kind of being authentic and revealing a little bit of who I am has also led to not just clients, but partnerships. So I've had 3 licensed collections: a furniture collection, a lighting collection, and a fabric collection. All of those were generated from social media.
That's so cool.
And relationships that I made. Family-owned companies. We love what you're doing. We like that you're a customer. You have similar values to our company.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know what my values were if I didn't take them home
If you
with
weren't
me for
putting it out
Christmas.
there.
Right.
Yep.
If I wasn't in my Sunday best on Sunday and I posted a Bible verse they wouldn't know what my values were.
Yeah.
So it has allowed me to connect with so many brands and businesses and publications that have a similar viewpoint. And so sometimes when you go in with one objective, you come out with all kinds of rewards.
Yeah, did unattended benefits, right?
Yes.
Just making sure. That's awesome.
Yep.
That's
I love
awesome.
that.
So obviously, you've been in business for 13 years. You've grown from doing DIY stuff for friends and family to, now in the luxury space. I know that in your line of work, starting out, I would say probably still today, it's very personal for you, right? Like you have your own personal aesthetic.
Yep.
You have a particular way that you like to do things, how you like to run your projects, how you like to organize things. When you expanded to the point of like, I need to have a team now, what was that process like for you, right? Because like you're kind of giving away a little bit of your of your creative aspect to it. How did you hire them? How did you identify who that person was? Do you cede control of certain things? And what was that process for you?
I love this question, especially since I'm talking to a recruiter. So remember
Ex-recruiter.
those transferable skills that we talked about. So I worked in HR. I worked next to the recruiters. His diversity kind of touched all of the HR aspects. So I kind of knew what the process was for seeking out new talent. Again, when I'm literally was hiring an intern at the time. And with the prospect of that person becoming my first part-time employee. And so I put it out on the platform where I had the most, influence and exposure, and basically posted an opening and started to field interest. So I knew this is one thing that I think designers often get wrong. Their first hire, they're looking for a buddy a lot of times because it's lonely. It's a lonely business, right?
Sure.
You're making decisions. You're questioning those decisions. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody to bounce that off of? That's how I think a lot of people think. Like, I need a mini me.
Yeah.
And they hire a mini me. I did not want a mini me. I knew enough to know I need to hire for my deficiency. What don't I want to do? What am I not good at? What am I doing, but I probably shouldn't be doing? And so I hired for that. So I was very clear with my first hire. Hey, look, I'm looking for somebody. I'm literally building this from the ground up. I will provide you access to everything, minus my financials. But you'll be boots on the ground with us building this from the bottom up. I can't offer you long-term anything because I don't know where this is going. but I would love for you to start out, as a paid intern. If things go well, I think it was like a 30 or 60-day trial thing. Then I'm willing to offer a part-time opportunity, at 20 hours a week, with the growth opportunity. We'll see. Okay. And so I got to take her. I met with her. I'm a pretty traditional conservative kind of person, and I don't mean politically. But I'm a corporate girl.
Yeah.
I show up to the interview. The girl has blue hair, and she has an art degree, but she's also a whiz kid with a spreadsheet. And so I'm literally telling her about my business, all the back end. She's asking all the questions. We were at this taco place in Charlotte forever, and I'm like, I think she might be. She's not who you would think. She's certainly not a mini me. But I'm like, there's something about you get this, and you're interested, and I feel like you're good at the things I'm not.
Right.
And so I hired her, and she went from intern to first part-time employee to first full-time employee to first full-time employee with benefits and on payroll. She is still with me today.
I love that.
7 years later.
Yeah.
And so we did a 30-day stay interview.
Yeah.
We did a 90 day reviews her first year. She now manages our other employee. I have a part-time employee that reports to my number 2. And again, I hired for what we needed, what our gaps were. So Jen also, she went back to school and did the same program that I did at my encouragement. But she operates in a project manager kind of operations manager role, because that's really her superpower. She has multiple superpowers.
Sure.
But that's one that I have a deficiency in. We are both creative, and we both are designers at heart. Her aesthetic is a lot different from mine. And so when she operates in a junior designer capacity, she has to kind of put on her Cheryl hat, because it's not her personal aesthetic.
Right.
She understands that she's operating underneath me. But I hired for my deficiency.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I needed a little bit of what I didn't like doing was client interfacing on a day-to-day. I was wrapped up too emotionally in it. I needed to protect my peace, because I was taking everything personally. Like, oh my God, they're mad. Oh, what do they mean by that? Like, I was too close to it. And so I needed to create some distance. So she immediately took over client communication.
Yeah.
And I only saw the things that were problems that I needed to address. And so I had to teach her my voice and how to respond like I would respond, and what to say and what not to say. There's nuance in communication. So she took that over, and that at least gave me some breathing room, and everything wasn't, a hot button issue. And so she took over procurement, all the spreadsheets, and we kind of have been rolling together ever since. She's helped build a lot of the systems we have today. So.
Well, I think hiring for deficiencies, like, I think that's a lot of the reason, like, I'm in the role that I'm in. Like, when the owner of our company, like, he didn't hire me because he liked me. I mean, he does like me. I think he likes me. He hired me because I was really, really good at the things that he wasn't good at.
Yep.
And once him and I got our working relationship together, he was a client of mine for almost 2 years. So once we had that piece established, like, it enabled me to do a lot of things, but it also, much like kind of what you're talking about, it enabled him to have more reach and to elevate him so that he could start to do different things that he either wanted to be doing, he was good at, but didn't have originally have time for. And then at the same time, like, that extended me to be able to, like, hyperfixate on the things that I wanted to be doing. And that's kind of how we hire now through our company is, I look for 2 things. Like, I look for skill set and I look for passion, right? If you have the right passion and you're here for the right reasons, you believe in the things that we're believing in, I can teach the other pieces, right? But I don't want to hire a yes man.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I want somebody to be able
That's
to
what I
push
was
back.
thinking too when you were talking about getting a mini you. Like, you don't want somebody that's just like, yes, 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 you're, like you don't want combativeness, but
Yeah.
you want to have that
Yeah.
communication, and it will just lift both of you up,
Well,
and make you better.
oftentimes I think in the design community, you're looking for someone with this is what happens a lot. We see it. Two designers, it's the designer and the design assistant. They dress alike, they look alike, they talk alike. Mini me wants to be me, which is problematic, right? Because in a small business, there is only one me, right? I left corporate so I could do what I love to do for a living. We can't both do that.
Yeah.
Not here.
She didn't go through Project 36.
Right. So now I'm hiring someone who is there essentially to learn what I know and go do it themselves, which I can't be mad at. This is exactly why it's problematic to hire someone who wants to be you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you're planning on expanding and scaling your business and you need another you.
Right.
In my case, that wasn't the goal. And so I had to really be intentional about being clear about what the opportunity actually was.
Well, that was going to be kind of my next question, right? It's like, you're at the point that you're at now. Like, what is the future for your company? Is it that expansion? Is it, build out more, or is it, continue doing what the same, like trust the process and just keep powering through?
I always struggle with this, the long-term vision, because so much of what I have now, I wouldn't have even known to ask for or to dream up 5, 8, 10 years ago. So I like to leave some room. But that said, I am super goal oriented. And I think I came to this at a later stage with some clarity. I do not want a huge business. I don't want a huge team. I don't want 5 mini me's designing all around, the world. I do, however, want to grow my business. I envision myself probably being a little bit more like your grandma. I don't like retirement is like not even a thing. I mean,
right.
If I can run it until I'm not able to walk anymore, I'm probably cool with that.
Yeah.
I love it that much. So I would love to continue to grow in terms of the projects that we take on, maybe the locations. We've done some remote work, in different locations. I would love to do more of that, getting projects across the country. But I like a small team. I like where I can offer long-term growth opportunities, really kind of have, I hate to say a family atmosphere, but an atmosphere where everybody has skin in the game. Like it's my business and my name is on the shingle, but they're growing with me. And when I grow, when I win, we all win. So I like that team aspect where the credit is not just mine.
Right.
Like, and I'm intentional about sharing that as well. Like I couldn't do this without the people that I work with. So yeah, I love the longevity.
Yeah.
Having a team that knows where the bodies are buried. Like
yeah.
there is like, they
That's
got
funny.
my back because they remember when.
Yeah.
I love that. And so the more I grow, the more I can help them grow, and we evolve and,
help them reach their goals.
Yeah.
And
I like that kind of atmosphere. So I probably I don't see myself with more than about 5 employees.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Do you have any one particular group of projects that you've done that I guess stand out above the rest in terms of like your personal fulfillment, or, just something really, really cool that you never dreamed you were going to work on?
All of our projects are, they're so like design is, it's personal. Like we are in bed with our clients. Like we are figuring out where their underwear is gonna go. Like it is a seriously close relationship, which means you have to really be intentional about boundaries. But that said, I love so many of our projects. I think the one that probably has my heart is because it's tied to one of my own personal goals. I have a dream of having a mountain house to retreat to. Um, and I'm trying to make this happen sooner rather than later. And we, a couple of years ago, completed a second project for a repeat client. We did their home here on the lake, and then they built a mountain house. And I certainly poured myself into it because I kind of want one myself.
Sure.
I'd take theirs in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But it was, we love them as clients, but I also love that project because it was kind of like a practice run for something I would love for myself.
Yep.
That's cool.
Just the location and the being there from the ground up, and just how well appointed it is, and it was almost like a sneak preview for me personally. That's kind of how I approached it. Like, okay, I'm going to do this for them, but in the back of my mind, at my house, I'm going to do this instead. It's like a trial run. And so I look at that project often as kind of a goal.
Motivation.
Yeah.
I think it's just very cool, like the unintended benefits of your job. Like who gets to like start running practice trials on their own future house, right? Like, like we work in flooring. Like, it's nice. I could see, different flooring that I want to put in my house, but I don't have the house that I want to put it in yet. And so it's like, so it's all those things. So no, that's really cool.
Yeah.
One question that we usually like to end on, and, we ask everybody too, is, obviously going through what you've gone through, and your story is amazing. And what advice would you give to somebody who's like, who wants to make this a career path, or, maybe even just has like an interest in it, but, doesn't know how to make the leap? Like, what would you tell the 17, 18-year-old kid looking to forge their own way?
Yeah. Oh gosh, so many things. I think the first thing is, in retrospect, I kind of wish I would have trusted my gut a little bit more, because as I look back, when I was 17, 18, graduating from high school, I was a creative. I knew I was a creative. I knew I needed to be going in a creative field. At the time, I loved fashion, and I was doing some things, extracurriculars related to that. And I probably should have gone that route. I probably would have found greater fulfillment in my work than I did for a long time. Because as much as I liked my job and it was good to me, it wasn't my passion. Yeah. And I kind of always had that feeling like I was faking it, because I was amongst dietitians who also are very passionate about their job. And I never was. Like, I pretended, but I wasn't. I never was. And so that was hard. So I think I would say to my younger self, like, you got this. Like, you're going to be successful at whatever you do. So if there's something that's burning inside of you, you probably should go with that.
Yeah.
Instead of taking the safe path.
Yeah. Bet on you.
Yeah. Bet on you. I would say to aspiring or up and coming designers, or somebody who maybe has a passion and can't see how they could ever possibly, start with what you have where you are. It's what I did. I mean, I had no intentions on ever leaving my day job. I just started with what I had where I was. I took a little class at the junior college, started a little blog, and I let it lead me where I was supposed to go.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't have the playbook or the master plan. You got just enough light for the next step.
Yeah.
Right. So you take that next step, and then you take the next one, and then you're like, oh, whoa, I didn't know there was a whole staircase.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
So you just keep going one step at a time. I think also act as if until was something that I did. Like, I wasn't a full-time designer, but I presented myself like I was. I took professional photos like I was. I showed up on social media like I was. Some people were like, wait, you don't do this for a living? No. So I act as if until. And then that consistency, I think, is the other piece. Like, you got to show up. You got to show up day after day after day until you see the fruit of that showing up.
Yep.
And you keep showing up after that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, Cheryl, we really appreciate your time here today. Thank you for sharing your story
Thank
with
you
us.
for having me.
Again, this is Quentin Glenn for Amy Mareko, and thank you for watching Building Insight.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.